Yes, recording in progress. So thank you very much for joining the Bachu webinar. It's been 6 months. We hosted a webinar. The last webinar was about the Rain app, where we kind of shared the who runs what contract and when does it expire. Fast forward 6 months, we lost 3 members in our small team, and between our little team and the family, we lost close to 11. So there was lots of soul searching. In between, I was down with COVID myself, family was down. So that's the reason for the delay. It's so nice to see so many good friends here, and also so nice to see a lot of new friends joining us as well. So this is about commercial services, but having looked at the list today morning, we realized that out of the 96 odd registrants, close to most of them, so we have attendees from 43 SMEs in particular, and other than that, most of the friends are from the strategic supply. So bear with me where I lay down the agenda slightly, where we'll start with the public sector market, because the strategic suppliers, friends from there will know, but we laid it down so that you will understand what it takes, why CCS framework is important to you. We'll just gradually build it up so that by the end of when we reach the framework part, you will get to know what the framework avails for, and that will be a teaser. We might also have Rob and Steph from the CCS team joining us later. So let's begin the thingy. So I know this, I wrote this recently for a conference, for a leadership conference, and I thought I'll have this as a first slide. While I am talking to you, I know you might not be physically present here. It's normal, 2 years. Some of you might have gone to work to the office this week. Well done you. But either way, I understand that there is a stress, and there is a lot of emotional distress that we went through in this past 2 years. So I'm aware of that. And as you know, we went through a lot ourselves. So the recording will be available, slides will be there. Do your best to focus on this, but we will gradually build up the analytics so that you're not overwhelmed with this point. So again, over the years, we have been building clarity and awareness to the market. But the question here is, 2014, when I started Bachu, there was this gap between what we call analysts, the outsourced FM market, outsourced business services market, what happens, and there's a trust deficit, etc. You can still find that in the bachu.com website. But the point here is 2 reasons. One is why we are doing this webinar in arm's length with CCS is because of 2 reasons. One is twisted data. The data that's available in the market is super twisted, very qualitative, which means people who make decisions out of it, it could be the industry or the buyers. Over the past 6-7 years, we were able to solve a lot of issues with that. That's number one. Secondly, there is no industry body in UK, as you know. It's a big statement, which I've been telling for more than a year, and that's a fact. So what that means is when one large tender like this comes to the market engagement with buyers and suppliers, there is not a forum. And that's where we are gradually coming on that place to be this trusted environment where buyers and suppliers can come on with it. Because otherwise, CCS as a buyer will have their own restrictions of how much they could interact, and new suppliers want to reach out to them. There might be some barriers. So we are just trying to cover the space on both sides. So to confirm, the disclaimer says, we are not working on behalf of CCS, but this is just a voluntary kind of work to ensure that this big tender that's hitting the FM market this quarter between October to December gets reached to as many people, because CCS has done a lot of work in simplifying the tender to make it much more user-friendly. And we thought it's important to relay this message to the wider community to distill that information in biteable chunks and back it up with data and take it to the market. That's it. And that also means it aligns nicely with our Together campaign, where we have been documenting the stories of how the industry and the government and the SMEs are working together in solving the society problem. That's a much broader why of why this webinar is being constructed on this way. So some of you might know, some of you might not know me, and I'm Bhaskar, and I run Bachu. Bachu is a family of 3 companies. So Bachu Rain, which is the FM portal, research insights plus sales development, market development portal, is what much more useful here. 2/3 of the top 85 companies use us for their strategic insights, and many buyers use us for FM. 300 investors use us for their portfolio analysis and so on. So either way, that's who we are. And why we are doing this. So the next one is reactions, because over the past 2 years, you might have done different ways of working. Obviously, there was a shock to the economy, and from the reactions to the shock, that your company might have changed directions of what could be your focus, what not be your focus. And today you might be harvesting the reactions of what you reacted to it. Again, I always start with this slide because the market is much more uncertain than what you anticipate. It might look overall slightly balanced, but it's not, because people's reactions, companies' reactions, it could be both buyers and suppliers, means things are starting to unravel your decisions and what that means to the market, and CCS will be one of those things. So I will pick up the Q&A as and when we go, but if I do miss it, let me know. We are still only seeing the first slide. Great, thank you. Let me stop. This is typical. This is typical. Thank you for sharing that. So let me find a way to do that. Stop share. End slideshow. Let's just do the traditional way. Hopefully you could see now. New share. Let's go from the basic. Right. So this is where I started with humanness. This is the disclaimer, the twisted data. There is no industry body, hence this market engagement. This is one slide of me and why. This is the COVID interaction. Hope you could see the slides now. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for raising that, team. Thank you so much. So going back, a very, very quick refresh of the market, because it's super important, because this nicely fits in. Rather than to jump in straight to CCS, I think it's important. So every year, twice a year, we benchmark the market. Again, the data that we build up is based on the contracts database. Every year, February and November, we take a full stab on all the contracts that's outsourced in UK, both public and private. So today we have collected close to 11,600 opportunities, which we believe it's around 85% of the market. And based on that bottom-up analysis, we build up the overall value of the market. So, and most of the other research reports or anything, it's very subjective. It will say $72 billion, whereas ours, you can click and it gives you the details, bits and more. So why is it important is because we will slice and dice the details. So today, the market stands at 117 billion. But again, if you kind of flip the details into multiple parts, what you can find here is you're going to find that the market is evenly spread today. Most of you know this, but I just thought I'll kind of see this and start this from there. So what happens there is, because of the first thing that I said, there was a shock to the economy and there was a reaction to the shock. The private sector got more hit than the public sector. So what that means is, again, this data point is based on Feb 2020, November, when we release the second version, you're going to see even more prevalent. It means market buys things differently. Today, the 43 suppliers that we have with specialist services from fire and safety, security, cleaning, you name it, CAFM system, you all are here. So you all have a place in the wider market. Like the market is not structured as like, okay, it's only TFM, it's only IFM. No, as a whole, the market is structured separately. So the 117 billion is a total contract value, Chris. So primarily what we have here is a kind of breakdown of how the market procures its services. So integrated FM or TFM, soft FM and hard FM. So there is an equal split between soft and integrated, and certain sectors, hard FM comes on with it. But our focus here is more or less public sector today. So if you are in the private sector, office and commercial buildings, regardless, buildings will exist, and that will be the biggest market there. Obviously, the likes of manufacturing and other segments are growing. The likes of retail and leisure and other sectors have been hit. But things are neutralized, things are normalized, it's get back to it. But the important point here is central government is the biggest public sector client. If you are operating in public sector, it's central government. And if you're operating in central government, Crown Commercial Services is the procurement authority. And if Crown Commercial Services is the procurement authority, they control the maximum spend, hence the largest tender in the UK market, which is the CCS RM 6232. And that's the kind of the overlying principles here. So let's just go and understand a little bit more. So that if I slice that 57 billion pounds of the public sector market, close to 34% comes from the central government. We carved out defense as a separate sector because there is also some maintenance. As you can see in the public sector, especially the way they manage the CPV codes and stuff, sometimes you will find the information that's been shared might not be fully FM. Hence you find what we call other support services inside. So we've carved it out. So if you're working on the public sector, some of you might be pure play NHS, pure play local councils. Some of you might play only in private sector, etc. It gives you an overall feel for it here. So if you are deciding, is public sector my right market? If so, where should I put my buck in? Then CCS framework by far is super important for you to go for it. So this is central government, predominantly the biggest chunk of what you do. And as you know, because the test centers, maintenance of test centers, COVID and other things, that number, believe me, from February to November, we're anticipating is to balloon it even more. Again, in the public sector, it's still kind of very segmented. Hence, CCS FM framework is carved into soft FM, TFM, and hard FM, which I'll touch later on. So from what it was before with 3 lots, today it's 10 lots. 10 lots. So what that means is a specialist service provider, specialist catering, specialist security, specialist hard FM players, fire and safety, you name it, you all can now tap into the CCS framework. Before it was a bit challenging. And also there are numbers that we have underpins that the market means that there is a lot of opportunities that CCS can then tap into from the wider public sector perspective, added part of the Crown Commercial Services framework as well. So they are working through as we grow. And at the same time, it's important for you to see planning wise, am I playing in the right market? If so, do I have enough opportunities in the market that I want to play with? Again, this is why it's important. Now, again, many of you are SMEs, but we also have tier 1 players for them. They will be aware of this because we shared this so many times. So if you look again, which sector procures what? That's an interesting thing. IFM, top players is still office and central government. So the highest public sector market and the highest private sector market still prefers office. So that means 60% of the overall is still IFM or TFM. Then the other sectors kinds of focuses on this. The bigger player here, again, February 2020, we haven't benchmarked Mighty Plus Inter, which will be done November 2020. Otherwise, you're going to find those guys. Why is it important to also look into the suppliers on this? The very first framework, I think it's 6056 or something, that came out in 2015. The tier 1 players who are the Bar Carolean, they all are in RM3830, which is 2018. And every single one or most of these tier 1 providers are already preparing for the next framework, which means they will be going into this new framework as well. So we will touch who these framework suppliers are, and you can find all these names in there. Why it's important for you to know these suppliers? 2 reasons. Number one, is it the right time for you to move from being a tier 2 provider to become a tier 1 provider? Or is it time for you to also go and work to them? Obviously, you're currently working with them as a specialist subcontractor, but remember, part of the social value, local supply chain is important. So they need to demonstrate that they're working on. So very early on, if you go and approach them and say, hey, we would like to work with you for the CCS framework, they can start to evidence it for their social value and carbon net zero, etc., because collectively they need to demonstrate an action plan. So I will touch all these things later on, but for now, keep an eye on the market and the competitors. Again, soft FM, the way central government, leisure. So again, it's very, very segmented. Hence the reason today the market is CCS framework is structured by soft FM and hard FM and TFM. There are a few pointers here that you can go for it. Again, CCS procures only central government. That's not the case. They can also have a stab on. Any other public body can also use their framework. That's close to 18,000 suppliers as of 2019-20. That also increases, which means this wider market can also now be part of the framework. Before, it was slightly challenging for the buyers. Hence, there is a second reason. One, public sector market will be growing more than the private sector market. Secondly, CCS will also be able to harness their power to procure even more call of contracts part of this. Before, they had some challenges, but now in addition to central government bodies, they can also do it so that you could also start to feel even more churn of projects coming through. Same thing in here on the hard FM services as well. So we also have the same breakdown by security, by cleaning, by fire and safety, you name it, all the stuff in here, but I don't want to bore you in there. Approach it in the same way. Who are the key suppliers and how is the market procuring? So in that way, which you can decide two things. Number one, which lot should I have to go for? I am a pure play cleaning provider. Should I go for soft FM only, or is there anything that I could do to do more? If so, I know that I can do it for myself on 0 to 1 million TFM that's available as well. Can I do something there to add a little bit more? You can start to make some decisions, and these decisions you should start to make now, because when the tender document hits, you're already too late, because this is not straightforward. This is an overall view of the public sector market and why CCS frameworks are important. If there is any question, drop it on the Q&A. I'll pick it up as I go. So CCS, a quick overview. Most of you know, Crown Commercial Services formed 2014 is the largest buyer in UK. Over the years, they've consolidated their presence in FM alone. As you can see, the old version where they had 12 billion spend to the current version, 35 billion spend, they are aggregating their spend more and more. This is just on FM, but we will touch, there is a lot more to Crown Commercial Services. So a very quick overview, there's 4 pillars for them: buildings, corporate solutions, people and technology. And between all these things, there are close to 104 live tenders. And these 104 live tenders, they use it. Some are what we call the dynamic purchasing system, where you could click and buy or join at any time. Cleaning DPS is one, which is relevant for us, but there is also so many other elements that can go in as well. So when we go deeper in what's relevant to us, which is workplace, construction, and energy, which sits in buildings, and if you could carve out specifically what sits under CCS on workplace alone, you will clearly see there are a few things: facilities management, estates, which is the framework that went live recently, fit out, linen and laundry, security, furniture, etc. So it's all there, part of the CCS overall framework. So this is again a little bit thing. They just not only do FM, there is a lot more towards it. Construction, like design, build, operate, maintain, and sustain. So our part focus is about maintain, the cleaning, the security, the maintenance. And also now with energy, smart buildings, etc., they're also looking slightly more. So is this the only framework that we need to look for? No. Inside workplace services today, if we go and check, there are 7 frameworks. The cleaning DPS is one. If you're a cleaning provider, you can go and join this cleaning DPS today for 2 reasons. Number one, you can become part of the cleaning dynamic purchasing system, which gives access to any local authority or any central government body or anybody. If they think they can buy from you because you're part of the cleaning DPS. But the second important reason is, once you join a DPS, there is something called a selection questionnaire that CCS always gives you. And you can get used to what it means to kind of bid for CCS framework. If you haven't done it, it's not easy. So even from our own personal experience, we failed twice before we entered the research marketplace. So that building cleaning services, that DPS, if you're not part of it, if it's relevant for you, you can always click and do it. Again, it's there. At the time of when we looked at it, it was 25, but today it might be slightly higher. So the framework, then the estates, which recently went live, there are 33 suppliers. FM marketplace, the old one, is 43 to 45, depending on how you see the numbers. But we at an average pitched at 44. Then furniture and associated, this is the fit outs and stuff. Again, you can clearly see the lots, the number of lots. In the old version, they only had 3 lots, but today they had 10 lots, which means it's much more segmented, much more inclusive, much more targeted, and much more, as you can see, as the market is very segmented, as is the lots today that you could lift and apply. It's there. So it expires in July. Primarily, if all goes well, the new CCS framework will go live on October 7th. It's super important that day because that day is my birthday. So that's another reason why we are doing this. So depending on the time scale, it could be early October, but when I was speaking to the team, it's 7th of October is what they are planning for. Just plan it accordingly. So that's the thing. Then you also have what you call these 3 more frameworks: linen, laundry, and FM Marketplace 2, which is DIO specific. It's also there. Familiarize yourself with these frameworks, understand who these suppliers are. Why? Because when you look at CCS frameworks, obviously, as CCS does more and more frameworks, the way you need to start to think about it is not everything will be entirely new in a CCS framework. There will be some core principles like terms and conditions, like this selection questionnaire, etc., which are exactly the same or which are fairly similar in most of the FM framework, in most of the CCS frameworks. So you can start to understand the terms and conditions. You can start to understand the pricing matrix. Pricing matrix will be different, but still, how do they kind of measure at the same time the selection questionnaires, etc. So go in, especially the cleaning DPS, you can click and have a look at the selection questionnaire, see what else you can do. If you're already part of the previous frameworks, now is the time to start to plan your readiness, because some of the principles will still be the same, but some principles will be different. And you might be asking, it's all good central government. What is central government? I had this curious question myself a few months ago when I dip in. That's an entire minefield, that one. Again, every reshuffle, name changes, everything as it stands. This is it. There are ministerial departments, there are non-ministerial departments, then there are agencies, then there are profile groups, public corporations, devolved administrations. It's all fits into the CCS umbrella. So which means when you say central government, what do they actually do? You can clearly see easily that there are close to 600 odd organizations that easily could be part of this. So if the framework is 4 years and every year 4-year refreshers, what that means is any central government contract that was outsourced, say in 2015, part of the first generation 2015 framework, 5+1 or 5+3, etc., they will be coming for renewal in this framework. So you might see the call of contracts coming out on RM 3830 might be slightly lower, is because many of the contracts that were outsourced was 7+3 or 5+2, etc. And you will start to see most of those legacy contracts, central government contracts, coming through this. And you can also see some of the new contracts which had like 3+1, etc., coming through this. Plus, as I mentioned, because the framework is slightly more inclusive now, you will also start to see not just central government opportunities, but larger opportunities. That's all great. Is Crown Commercial Services the only authority who comes with frameworks? No. Overall, from 2015 onwards, framework became a popular tool and as a mode of outsourcing. So there are close to 400 frameworks. And these are not frameworks, but mostly many NHS trusts, local councils, police authorities, you name it, came out with their own frameworks with the hope like, okay, if I can come out with the framework, then the nearby public bodies can also use the frameworks. But these frameworks are never successful. If you go and see the total number of spend, the top 2 frameworks are still CCS frameworks. After the CCS framework, it will be the ESPO framework. Then there might be 1 or 2 frameworks, depending on which region you play with. But in the top 10, you're going to find pretty much mostly it's CCS frameworks. So this is the question for you, which you need to consider. It's like, there are so many frameworks to go for. Which one should I have to go for? That's the reason I covered this early part of public sector spend and how the overall market data helps you to go for this. which means more and more. And you can clearly see 12 billion spent last time to 35 billion targeted spend this time. So you should be part of something that's growing, and that's why it's super important for you to be part of this framework, small or big. So that's the overall view of the CCS. Before I dwell into 3830, any questions? Okay, let me crack on. So 3830, this is the early versions. Why is it important? Because it's important to, as I told you, in CCS, the principles are built incrementally up. So the more you know what's done in the past, the more you know how you could prepare yourselves in the future. So CCS has done a lot of market engagement with existing this 40-odd suppliers and said, hey, what worked for you? What didn't work for you? Is there anything else that we could do to improve? 16th of September, there is a second deep dive. So there is a link in here where the team will be giving you a little bit more on how the whole principles, how they are improving the thing. So I'm not going to crash their thunder. So I'll just give you an overview of the 3830. Some of you are already part of this, and you know it might not have worked for you because the call of contracts and stuff wasn't relevant, but why should I have to bid for the next one? As I told you, they are building, they're aggregating, they're also reaching out, and CCS team now is much bigger than what it was before. So let's try to understand how the 3830 was structured. So, simply, it was focused on a public sector, but it's not, so the schools and hospitals, local authorities, blue light, charities also can use it in addition to the central government. So we found out there are 2.3 billion worth of call of contracts that came through that, which is really big. So in the old version, this is how it was structured. So it's important to understand this because then we can build it up to the bigger version. So RM 3830 marketplace, as they call it, lot 1A, 1B, 1C, 7 million, 7 to 50 million, and 50 million. As you can clearly see, there are 15 kind of what they called work packages, or 15 services that they targeted, which is written here. It's not always easy for an SME to do everything in one go. That's what's challenging. But at the same time, it wasn't easy for the tier one provider to understand, also to provide the costs or the square meter pricing across whole UK, regardless of the spec of the building. What's the square meter price for cleaning? Regardless of the spec of where it's located, I don't know the property type, what's the cost of catering, etc. It was challenging. So many tier one providers needs to go forward and make some judgments. That's where procurement will be a huge US supply chain team. Before, if they're not part of the bid team, the one critical resource for you in the CCS bid will be your supply chain team, because not necessarily your estimating team or your pricing team or your finance team will have the data. You will need to go back and see what do you have and what more do you need from your wider suppliers. That's why if the tier one providers don't know that you exist, it's important for you to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm available. But let's just go back. So if you look, the same thing, these are the 15 services. Many of you today who have joined this have access to, are actually doing most of these services. So until we get the real service spec, we won't know the actual details of how this will be carved out, but you can start to get the principles from the previous tenders, how they did it. So the 43 suppliers, or 44, 45, depending on how you carve it out, these are the suppliers. So you can clearly see the 0 to 7 million suppliers. There is, if you go to this slide, you will know out of the 45 odd suppliers, 9 are SMEs. So 9 still managed to crawl into the framework, because which was very, very high level at that point, because CCS was coming out and trying to consolidate it, trying to accommodate as many things. So they also were evolving as the spec evolved. So today it's much more inclusive, as I mentioned. So the point here is these are some of the suppliers. So in the past, you can only tender for 2 lots. So if 3 lots are available, you could tender for 2 lots. The same principle will be available on this one. So if you are bidding for total FM, you can only do 2 total FM, not 4. It's available. If you're doing soft FM that has 3 lots in the new framework, you can only do 2. So you have to pick and choose. So previously, as you can clearly see, different providers, they were slightly smart and they use different legal entities to go for this. The chances of you doing this time is very, very minimal. So if you're planning to do that, don't do that because you'll be shut down. So the number of players, you can find them here. So the different players are here: lot 1A, lot 1B, lot 1C. As I told them, you can only bid for 2 lots. In today, it's 10 lots split up into 3 segments. So at max, you can go for 6 lots. But again, the CCS team will detail all the principles behind this in their webinar, which is scheduled on the 16th of September. I'll share the link at this point, but it's worth looking into who are these suppliers, because these are the suppliers who are already part of the current framework. So they know a little bit more, or they know a lot more about what the work required to go for it. And many, many tier 1 suppliers who are here have already started the work as early as July on this. Because it's not going to be straightforward tender 7th of October when it lands in the early December or mid-December, then it kind of goes in. It's impossible for you to just fill the tender, because there is a lot of questions, a lot of schedules, a lot of data pricing that you need to collect for this. So reach out to them and see what it is. And these are, from our experience, we just went on and we found out what are the call of contracts that came with this. And these are some of the call of contracts. There are details behind it. It also gives you yeah, the framework was there, but I didn't get anything out of it, because as I told you, there were various reasons for this. One, many of the contracts didn't expire before this framework goes in. And also the way it was structured, central government bodies was useful, but then not the wider bodies. Today, both of them will fall in place for it. So the principles here is this. So same question actually. Okay. The principles here is this. Again, these could be Greek, Latin for many people, most probably or Japanese, Chinese, but it's important to understand. This is where I took like 30 minutes to set you inside, because it starts to get really, really dark. When I say dark, it will be an intense bid, and you do need to set aside dedicated resources to just tap into this. It's not going to be straightforward, but at the same time, the 0 to 1 million, the basic first bracket, will be much more friendly for the SMEs compared as you go, because the onerous increases, the insurance, the level of compliance, certification, accreditation, what you need to show as an action plan, because resilience is a big word, as you know, because of what happened in COVID, etc. So all these things will be building up as we go. So when you look at your lots, lot 1, say TFM, the 1A, 2A, or 3A will be easy, but 1B will be incrementally higher, 1C will be even higher, and then it goes on. So it's so the principles here kind of helps you with this. The scope of services is very wide. So the tier 1 providers who are part of it know it was challenging last time to build the solutions around it, and also pricing around it. And pretty much the square meter pricing is going to be the crux of it. Then came the KPIs and finally the 2P premium and stuff, because that was a sticky point last time. So today there is a lot of key improvements that has come through this, which I'll touch a little bit, but I'll leave to the CCS team later on to just give a touch on that. So that's the high level CM 3830. What we learned from that is it's 3 lots moved into 10 lots. And also many of the projects didn't expire during that tenure, it will expire during this tenure. Plus, because of the learnings that happen in 3830, this is a lot more improved. With that note, let me enter the 6232 framework. Any questions so far? Okay, it just gives me time to drink some coffee. Perfect. So 6232. Get used to the numbers. So primarily what happens here is understand previously all you had is three lots. Today it's 10 lots. Comparing the previous version to this version is very, very important, because that's how you can see. You might think that what you have done in the previous iteration might be helpful, but not necessarily. It gives you a starting point, but you still need to do a lot of work to get in there, because the service spec that will be coming out for hard FM for lot 1A, hard FM for lot 2A, and the service spec that's going to come for total FM for 1A will have some components same, but most components will be different. So when you are deciding to build for, say, 2 lots max per thing, you're going to see that it's not going to be fairly straightforward. Like, I can copy paste this from here, this from there, etc. There will still need to be, if you're looking, you might need to even consider having a responsible person for maybe all the revenue together or all the lots together, if you do decide to do 2 each, etc. So your team will be much bigger than what it was before, and the work that's required, you need to at least do 1.5 times more than it's before. I will touch that later on. So what's similar from the previous one, the 15 services are similar. The pricing will be fairly similar. That gives you a starting point, but there are a lot more new bits. The social value part and zero carbon, I will touch what you can do between now and then. So we have lots of new programs around it as well. But the timeline is here. It's going to be an 8-week turnaround. So last time, there's a lot of clarification questions. Obviously, there will be a lot of clarification questions. So, and of people with 10 lots, you're going to imagine how many clarification questions it's going to come. And last time there were building information that was shared, sample building information was shared halfway through. So you need to revisit and do everything from the beginning. So be prepared, be prepared. If you have anything else that's lined up between October to December, it's good luck. So we will touch that, some of the challenges on this. So timescales, please do. The reason for this webinar is also to give you a little bit push to just say, start to think about your resourcing, start to think about your strategic planning, because so far this is the must bit. Yes, it's going to take a little bit more effort or a lot of effort if you haven't done this in the past, but what's the cost of doing this versus not doing the other things? It's entirely, your company, or what it means to it. But there is a lot more to it, and what prep can you do? The timeline, as far as I know, hasn't changed, but CCS team will give us a brief next week on what exactly is, any more updates on this. So we touched this, the services are included, and what I thought I will touch here is there is 2 more that you need to keep an eye on. One is because of COVID, the schedules will be slightly more COVID related, which is much more on volume flexibility in bits and pieces. How can you ramp up? How can you ramp down? How can you do this? How can you do that, etc. But we'll wait for the actual service spec to come on board. Obviously, in addition to that, there will be related to some training within your team, how you accommodate, and all the shebang on what happened if the facility got COVID, what happened how will you manage a situation, etc., etc. So because the service spec will be slightly more fluid, that will also have a knock-on impact on the pricing, the evaluations, reporting, and KPI performance, etc. So you can start to see the similarities, but you can also start to see the variability as well on this. So which means the square meter price that you're going to give today will have a lot of factors, a lot of variables that you need to consider even before the variables was higher, because you don't know which geography it is, you don't know the type of building, and you don't know specifically how the service will be used in the call of contract. You still need to come out with a price. So today, that's on top of that, you add social value, carbon net zero, plus the COVID impact, you're going to see the amount of commercial sensitivities that you need to go through to come out with the details. It's super important for you to appreciate this. But outside all these things hidden, like a little thing, is this low value DPS, which is like the cleaning DPS, is very straightforward. Again, this will be part of this one as well. Again, CCS team will be giving a brief on this. So you as a supplier, if you decide no, RM6232, it sounds like too complex for me, which we will distill it as well. But this low value DPS sounds interesting for me. What can it do? It will be fairly simple, fairly straightforward. You can do it. You can get in to become a supplier. So the point here is, whether 6232 is for you or the low value DPS is for you as an SME, it's for you to decide. But if the cost of bidding 6232 is high, strongly suggest you go for go for the low value DPS if you're a smaller company, but I can guarantee all the tier 1 suppliers who are currently in the 6830 will be in 6232, which means that 35 plus tier 1 providers, you're going to see from 35 to 40, because the private sector players who got hit because of that now know the public sector is safe, much safer. So they will be also be coming on. So that number, the big players from 35 definitely will increase to 45. But whether the 9 suppliers will increase to 20, that's the whole reason of why we are trying to do this, to distill the information as well. Just keep an eye. So what I'll do that is I'll just take 5 more minutes to distill these 2 pointers so that you could start to do some groundwork between now and then. So the carbon net zero that clearly came out, there was a PPM that came out, which also tells you between now and the tender what you could do. So if you're bidding for any major contracts over £5 million, which means that 0 to 7 million total contract value, which is part of the CCS framework, if you're doing that, you need to come up with a carbon reduction plan. So most companies have a carbon reduction plan, and they come out like X and Y, I'm going to reduce it by 2030, etc. But believe me, it also relies to your suppliers. So now is the time to sit down with your suppliers to check your carbon reduction plan and check their carbon reduction plan and come up with these things. When the tender comes up, you'll be busy just answering the question. Now is the time to work out holistically with your supply chain. You have your own strategic number of what you need to do with your supply chain. What is it you can do to do? But the point to note here is what you write will be monitored by CCS. So this plan, you need to come out and say how you are improving on an annual basis or quarterly basis or half-yearly basis. So start to put some plan, start to do the ball in court. Again, I'll start to see the readiness gradually. So that's the carbon net zero. Next one is the social value. Social value and carbon net zero will be evaluated. This time, I think it's 10 to 15%, but CCS team will give you the brief on that. But point here is the five categories. Every company comes out with its own social value theme, but with the 5 categories, how can you improve your social value? This came out in the PPN, which came from the central government, which means CCS will be using this as a benchmark. There is something called social value model, etc. Again, if you click this note, it will take you to a page, and in that page, you will know social value model. Familiarize yourself, start to align your social value goals around these 5 principles. Anything else you do is all great, but it won't get you anything. And this is where it's important. This is where I think you need to start to see. You might not want to, if you're an SME today, this is where your tier 1 suppliers will need to demonstrate that they are using the local suppliers, or they are doing something to balance the economic inequality, because it's important for them to do part of this this element for social value. That means you can A, become a partner in doing that, B, they're mandated to do that anyway. So when you're doing social value, what else you can do? Bucket it under these 5 categories, because this is how it will be more or less scored. But we'll wait for the tender to come on. But this came from the social value model from the PPN, so you could have a basis on this. So bucket what you currently do on this, so that you can see what you can, when the tender comes out, you can start to use these principles there. Pricing, I already touched, is very similar to the previous one. It will be, you need to fill a pricing matrix. Obviously, it will have the services. Some will be blended rates, some will be component rates, and there will be key variables, which is like location, 2P, sometimes what will be the price if it's a direct award as well, which was very interesting last time. Billable works, which is nothing but your work packages, and the schedule of rates, what's the work hours, out of hours. When you add this, this is where permutation, computation come. When you add this and look at it on a column wise, where all the services, 15 services, out of hours, not out of hours, what's the fixed price, what's the direct award price, etc. You can see the amount of rates that you need to do just for the pricing alone. So start to pull some numbers on this. So again, while I do this, thought I'll quickly share a poll. So I know I've been talking for 15 minutes. I know I might have overwhelmed you, but with what you know about the CCS framework today, let's launch it to just see, are you bidding for it? If so, what lot are you planning to go for it? You can pick as many choices, but I'll just launch it and I'll wait for you for the next 10 minutes, or not 10 minutes, 2 minutes. Hope the poll is on live. This is an anonymous poll, so nobody knows what you have chosen. I hope it's working. Can you see the poll? Can you press 1 or something in the chat? Perfect. Thank you. Don't worry. I think this is a tentative decision. I mean, like it's it is going to mean like, are you going to go for everything? Are you not? Are you bidding for it? Not bidding for it? No. It's very interesting. Okay, 30 more seconds. Oh. Do you have any issues with the poll? Says it's closed. Great. Let me try again. Any luck now? Ah, it works. Good. Thank you. Okay, just 30 more seconds. Let's see. Right. Okay, thank you. We got 50% participated. So yeah, close to 93% are going for the poll, going for the framework. And few of you are saying no. Yeah, I'm sure the reason, you know. So, but yeah, but it's beautiful. I think this is what I really like about it. There is an even spread among everything. There is no one favorite lot, and that's because of the audience, I think, because you all are from different background. Brilliant, thanks. It's worked. You all are from different backgrounds, so it's a nice, beautiful blend. Where lot 1, 24%, lot 1 averages 24% to 31%, which is the TFM one, because we don't have many tier 1, we have more SMEs, which is nice. And then lot 2, we have 24 again to 28%, and then lot 3, we also have lot 3. Interesting, software firm is much higher. That's interesting because we have many cleaning and security providers, so I can see that happening. That's great. Thank you for that. It's really useful. So, share results. Share results. That's the results. Okay, let's talk the results. So primarily, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. I think with all the far cry, getting there. So primarily, I think between now and then, you know, what happens? You know, let's talk about the opportunity cost. It's all nice. I know I'm going to bid for this, but because we are data driven, this is what your opportunity cost is going to be. When between quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, just as a very small breakdown between catering, cleaning, hard FM, integrated FM, etc., both between private and public, we estimate or we know exact contracts. The close to 120 contracts will expire. So between the first 2 quarters of 2022. I like what CCS is doing, which expires in June. The contract comes out live in December. Many of these buyers, small or big, will also be coming out to tender in the next 3 to 6 months as well. This is where you just need to carefully think, okay, what's going to be your CCS big team versus your other big team? So I'm sure because CCS is framework versus the other one is just could be a direct tender. You might know the customer, you might have a better chance on that. But also this is a forward order book for you. If you are in it, it's future secured because public sector is high growth. Secondly, it's also important that you are part of this elite group of framework, because once CCS gets in, your pipeline, what they're going to share will only be restricted to the framework providers. It won't be hitting the wider market. So you want to be part of the inside circle. So the cost of that is this. So think it through. Again, these are the qualification questions. Me being an entrepreneur running my company, when I make a decision, obviously I think about the opportunity cost. Similarly, I see a few good friends here who are group sales directors, sales and marketing directors, head of MDs, etc. You will also need to balance it from there. But also, as I told you, as a long-term thing, I know cleaning, catering opportunities are coming, but also, what's the percentage? What's the percentage of opportunities that will be split up by soft, hard, and integrated FM across a number of deals next 3 years as well? It's a good blend, but you're going to see, if CCS do decide to widen their arm and try to get hold of schools and local government, you're going to see lot more of that over the next 3 years will be coming part of this tender as well. So it's a kind of a balancing situation. Yes, in the immediate 3 to 6 months, you might have some other priority opportunities. So if you have existing resources, how are you going to balance it out? Secondly, the wider next 3 years, CCS opportunities might be bigger than what you have. So how can you balance that? So again, if you carve that off, this is the homework for CCS, for example. But how they're evolving. They have their own BD team, they have their own customer experience team, and they are evolving like industry. So how much? Yes, they have a targeted spend to do that. What could be CCS's market? We know that entering CCS is important, but what could be CCS's global market, right? Or CCS's UK market? So between 0 to 7 million, there are 2,500. So that's totally segmented. Nothing comes to CCS. It's all done locally by the councils, by the NHS Trust, by the schools, by the you name it, everybody. So now will that 2,500, maybe 1% comes in, which is 25, could be part of CCS. You never know. If you put 1% on all these things, you're going to find a lot more coming through the CCS. So that's a 12 billion to 35 billion aggregation. Plus, as I told you, opportunities in the next 5 years will be coming, also will be part of this, which didn't expire in the previous generation, will be hitting you here. And public sector market will go much, much faster rate than the private sector market, at least in the next 3 to 5 years. So what could you do before now and the next October 7, I think? So decide which lots you'll be bidding. Don't forget to include the low value DP. So once you decide, then think about what else can you do. If you're an SME, now is the time. You have the list of suppliers. Now is the time to reach out to them. Or if you are a Taiwan supplier, reach out to your subcontractors and bring them part of this journey. Hey guys, we are going to do this. Also, you can work as one team. And then I don't know. I'm just advising you. You could just see how you could enable your supply chain to also be part of the framework. The more they are part of the framework, because I know not the tier 1 providers ideally would love to do everything themselves, self-delivery, because improves profitability. But at the same time, the way central government structures is, they know clearly, CCS knows clearly, the way they get their 25% number, which is like, at least 1/3 of the supplier should be SMEs, just like the tier 1 providers uses a lot of subcontractors to get their done. So the overall spread of the spend is managed by the tier 2 and the SMEs. So they use it that way. So it's not directly SMEs are involved, but tier 1 providers uses them. So now can you proactively do that? And also now the CCS framework is much more open and inclusive. More SMEs can come to the framework. It's a situation that you could do. Past performance, again, past performance is not like you can do a reference and come back for each of these lots. You have to have a name, and each of those name, you should also have a customer who will need to sign it before you submit the tender. It's not like you put a reference and say bye-bye. You should need to get who is going to be a lot 1A, who's going to be a lot 1B. So obviously from past experience, I know that you can use the same reference, but not more than twice. But just try to think about it and see what it is. But it should be just in the past 3-4 years, not older. Next one, action plan for social value, carbon net zero. Obviously, social value, there are 5 buckets on this. What are you going to do about this? And put some case studies, put some theories, find some interesting information around it. Carbon net zero, do you have a goal? 2030, I'm going to be X in that. Okay, fine. But how is your supply chain? Are they aligned to you? And procurement comes on board, and so on. So selection questionnaire is important. Relevant certifications, again, most of the big providers will have this. Cybersecurity essentials, ISO certifications. You might need to pledge on armed covenants and bits and pieces. So again, it's there. Think it through what it means, and then do it. Finally, these are 2 pointers which I already mentioned. If you haven't bid for CCS frameworks, please do register with that from workplace. But otherwise, drop a note to Ross. But what happens between now and next steps? Again, I just thought I'll help you with this as a strategic planning thing. Point number 1 is why you should go for this. Central government is the highest in the public sector market, and it will continue to strengthen from 1 to 1, especially after Brexit. There is a lot of, as you can see, the infrastructure plan has come out. So there is a lot more that's going to come. 15 services is there. Lot 1, 2A, 3A will be much, much less onerous compared to the other lots, which will be very SME friendly. And if you think that's harder, you can still go for low value DPS. From the previous iteration, this iteration is much, much, much more improved spec pricing and KPIs and T's and C's, which they will touch in 16th. Then finally, but you just need to think about opportunity cost. As I mentioned, big cost. Not everybody can do CCS framework, and the skill set is very low. It's very, very hard to find that of expertise. So hence we are trying to distill this information, send it to you so that you could start to do the groundwork yourself. So, and bigger players who knows it takes a long time to do it are already quietly collecting the data behind the scenes on how am I going to benchmark the square meter price, selection questionnaire, action plans, and bits and pieces. The high risk strategy will be, you just leave it, you show the interest, and the tender documents or the bid pack hits you 7th of October, you open it, you're overwhelmed, and then you get no bid. And then you will be gutted because next 3 years you will be excluded on pretty much most of the public sector spend. So please don't, but that's where. So the next step from here will be the CCS update webinar, but we won't be stopping it just from here. So, after this webinar, we'll be launching a 3-day readiness challenge. The 3-day readiness challenge is just for 3 days, as it says. It's 1 hour a day where we will be giving you this challenge so that instead of me telling you today, go and do this work, you're actually going to do this work as a challenge. It's a fun challenge. It's 95 pounds. We are just going to keep it just for fun. But I'm just going to make this as a priority gradually for you over the next few days. So that's a 3-day challenge. Then the deep dive readiness workshop. This is like, most of you might not know. I've seen some of the questions. Can you distill the T's and C's? Can you distill the pricing, etc.? This is where we'll be sitting down and pretty much from what we know on 3830 to what we know on what's going to come on 6232, sit down with you, train your teams, train whoever concerned so that you could go ahead and get this done with you. Then an audit, which is after this. We won't be doing it before. After this, okay, now either you join the challenge or you do the training. But if both of it now, before the tender comes out, do you have all this? There are 52. We have listed 52 elements part of the checklist. We'll audit and we'll just see whether you're ready for this. So, if you're ready for this, then you have much better chances to get in. Remember, there will be a threshold score that will be set by CCS. Not every provider who bid for it will go. The threshold score for the estate was like 42 out of 100. If you score more than 42, you get it, 42 or above. And this one, you will need to score somewhere around the same mark. We'll wait for CCS to tell you. Then obviously, if you're looking at, what's the cost? I'm bidding, I'm going to allocate my resources on the other one. We need search support or something. Let us know what we can do on this. And finally, collectively, I just want to look at the overall public sector or what this means to me, what it is. So regardless, we will continue to build awareness on this for the next few weeks, because part of the wider thing, as I told you, this is important on the FM market, and where we are working, to ensure that the market kind of understands this and not misses it. And whatever we could do, we would do to ensure it hits it. But note this dates, October 21, which is in 6 weeks' time. Not even 6 weeks' time. Today is 7th of November. If all goes well, it comes up 7th of October, as I told you on the birthday. So 1 month to go, 8 weeks timeline. So plan it and see what you need to go for. I already overran by this. Yes, it will be regionalized, George. I'm just picking up the questions. Anything else? So slides don't appear. Let me quick. Yes, the slide deck will be shared. Partly people who used the team link that was sent just 10 minutes before. When you clicked it, it came out as Bhaskar Sundaram. So I really don't know who you are. All I can see is 14 Bhaskar Sundaram, which is me, who's joined in. So slides will be sent, and we will remind you. I know you all are busy. We all are busy. We will continue to remind you on the importance of this in the week. Next week will be 16th February, will be 16th September will be CCS webinar. Immediately after that will be the 3-day challenge. Come on board, test yourself, and then we'll be having a deep dive workshop, which means you will be well placed to go for the framework. What that means is, as I told you, the skill set of FM expertise in the market is very low, CCS FM. So you might have some generic big consultants or anybody, it's fine. But let us help them to train your team so that you could get the best out of them. Because we can't support everybody, we understand. But at the same time, let us help you to also train your team on the specificity of this, so that when the tender comes out, you're all well placed to do it. If there is any questions, sorry I overran a little bit, I'm available to answer. Otherwise, you know my details, bhaskar@bachi.com. We will share the slides with also the essential guide, which is pretty much a summary of this in the next 24 hours. But otherwise, look after yourself, and if there is any questions, please do